And what Buddhism says, and what Buddha said is, this is suffering, this is the cause of suffering, that there is a way out, and like a doctor, here's a prescription. Here's what I'm laying it out for you, all you have to do it. Buddha never said, I'm going to wave my magic Dharma wand and make you happy. Oh, that it should be that easy, right? But I'm sure if Buddha came along with a wand to make us all in nirvana, we'd say, hold on, I've got this dinner reservation at this excellent restaurant. I just want to get all of these desires met before I become free of suffering. Because we have the habits. And that's the number one challenge with practice. To do something new, you have to undo the habit of doing the old thing. So, when we've talked about this not being from a knowledge point of view. We've talked about practice, not as a checklist. And when we look at the Eightfold Path, it's not a checklist. The word for right in Pali is samyak, S-A-M-Y-A-K, it's in your handout. And it can also be translated, it's not right and wrong. There's other translations of the word samyak. It can be genuine, it can be authentic, it can be correct. And really what we're doing is we have 8 aspects of our existence that we can use to practice in and to apply the Dharma as wisdom. And we're going to talk about the 3 trainings, which are right here. And the Eightfold Path can be divided into the 3 trainings. So the 3 trainings are a nice way of saying these 8 possibilities of practice can really be defined into 3 areas. And over this class and the next class, we're going to try and get in and understand. I promise we'll be able to actually have some discussions. I really, really, really cherish the opportunity because no one wants, very few people actually, will put up their hand and say, ooh, I want the opportunity to be wrong. Right? Here we're not trying to judge whether you're saying the right thing. I want to hear what your answer is. And really, you giving to this class is speaking out. And there are some of you who definitely don't want to speak. I just want to take, if you think of it that way. I want you to practice giving as well. Because believe me, when you're giving, you're going to get something out of it. So, having said that, there's a quote in your handout. And for whatever reason, when you had the handout, if you got one of the printed ones, it's on the second page, midpoint on the page. If you printed your own, it may not line up like that. But I've asked Andy to read it out. And it sort of really defines for me the difference in between just conceptual knowledge of the Eightfold Path and actually a practice. So Andrew, take it away.
As expressed by Bhikkhu Bodhi in his essay on the Eightfold Path states, the pursuit of a spiritual path is not like selecting a new suit of clothes. To select a new suit, one need only try on a number of suits, inspect oneself in the mirror, and select the suit in which one appears most attractive. The choice of a spiritual path is closer to a marriage. One wants a partner for life, one whose companionship will prove as trustworthy and durable as the pole star in the night sky.
In the night sky.
I almost made it
Night
through,
sky.
second last word.
Thank you, Andy. I appreciate that very much. And the difference is, that's what we generally go through. Like there have been, and there probably are people in this class who are saying, well, I took a class on Catholicism, or I took a Hindu class, and this is like Dharma-tainment. Okay? But it's only when you apply it. Because for all of this, all of Buddhism to mean anything, it has to work. It has to make your life. This isn't a, pie in the sky, sort of smoke and mirrors, laser show sort of thing. This is in a concrete way. It has to make your life better. And it will not do anything of that unless it's applied. That in the midst of our suffering, in the midst of our heartache, that we're actually to pull back from that emotion and gain some perspective and actually apply this stuff that we're talking about. So the Eightfold Path, and on your lecture notes, no, sorry, on the last page of the introduction, there's a diagram. So if everybody could turn to that diagram, please. And everybody looking at this can realize I'm not great in computer sciences. Oh, Zeus finds that very funny. I love it when there's an area of knowledge a 13-year-old knows far more about than I do. So, when we look at it, there are the Four Noble Truths. There's the nature of suffering, the cause of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path leading to the cessation of the causes of suffering, which is the Eightfold Path. And then the Eightfold Path is broken up into 8 areas of investigation, like we talked about, an application. So there's right view and right intention, which can be grouped as wisdom or prajna. Then there is right speech, right action, right livelihood, and in this case we'll also be grouping right effort in it. Right effort is often combined with meditation as well, depending on who's explaining it to you. And there's reasons why you can apply right effort to both. And then there's meditation, or samadhi, which is right mindfulness and right concentration, and also including right effort as well. And the middle one, perhaps, is one where there's a lot of confusion about morality, about sila. Sila is the Pali term. And before we break up into groups, just for the first group of questions, I want to do that, I just want to speak about morality and virtue in Buddhism. From the Judeo-Christian, and this is beginning with the lecture notes now, but I thought I'd just bring it up before we get too far with it, because Venerable Manyi quite correctly encourages me to focus on the 5 precepts and morality in the discussion of the Eightfold Path. Because often, like as Jesus said, I don't care how many phrases of the Bible or learnings that you know, it's what you do that matters. But from a Judeo-Christian culture, a lot of the times I think the approach is to obey because I better obey. Because there is a being, there's a scorekeeper, there is someone who is going to judge me. In Buddhism, it's different. The concern of morality is not so much an ethical one as it is a component of mental refinement. The fact that there is no line between body and mind, that all acts of body, speech, and mind are preceded by a mental idea, which is what we were talking about with the 5 aggregates and skandhas. So I think when we talk about morality, it's not that we should behave in ways because that's what we should do. We behave in these ways to become happier. We behave in these ways to become enlightened. We behave in these ways because it makes a better difference to us and to those around us. Is Sheila dead? No. Okay.
She is pretty quiet.
Wow, she is. When the forehead hits the book. Okay. See, that's what I do. I don't punish people. I just publicly embarrass them. Okay.
Thank you very much for that,
Yeah,
Mark.
you're welcome. You're welcome.
It helps with my practice.
Okay, so did everybody have a chance to read the Eightfold Path and the core teachings? I'm not going to ask for show of hands. I would, if you haven't done it by now, I would really ask you to do it. If you take the handout that I've given you and the core teachings on the Eightfold Path, not just read it. I don't want you to just read it. You might as well do a crossword. What I want you to do is I want you to take it, right? And I want you to think of how it works in your own life. If I'm not doing this stuff, what am I doing? That's what I want you to think about. So further to that, there's 4 questions here. So the 4 questions are, who is responsible for your happiness and suffering? Have you ever felt joy over obtaining something material? Have you ever had your heart broken? If so, who is responsible for that? Everybody see this? This is in the introductory at the bottom. And the last question is, have you ever had something bring you unshakable contentment? So we're gonna break up into discussion groups. Are we all sitting in the same places that we were when we last had a discussion? Okay. So what I'd like to do is to break up, we can, yeah. Don't be attached to your seating plan. Okay? So what I'd like to do is if you could just sort of, maybe from Jan over would be one group and then sort of a third and two groups on this side. If you could just sort of break yourselves up and assistant facilitators and facilitators, if you could sort of join those groups. And what I would like you to do, you don't have to answer all four. Pick the question that's going to be either the hardest or the most fun, and we're going to meet in 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
10 minutes, so that's 5-2.
Maybe I've never had it, maybe that's why I don't.
Not everyone has to choose like something always.
So what would be your contentment in your life?
What would be, your most unshakable source of contentment?
So here you can put down if you're doing something for
Being out in nature.
Yeah, walking by the ocean.
Yeah.
Well, I could say yes, it's not
But when you start a practice, one of the real important things to look at in accepting responsibility for your own suffering or happiness is to realize that things objectively within themselves don't contain happiness. So, new motorcycle. That motorcycle doesn't contain happiness. I fill that material object with desire and happiness. And without a practice based on wisdom, you get that happiness. You do when you, a new car or maybe a new job or a new relationship, and it gives you that happiness. But then you lose it, and then you want it more, and then you want it more, and it never ends. It never ends. And it doesn't mean, when we talk all life is suffering, it doesn't mean that we can't have relationships, we can't have cars, we can't enjoy this really cool whiteboard marker that goes up and clicks down. That's so cool. Tony, eh? Like a pen, it's great. It's good. We can't, but when we're in relation with things, that if we don't have that motorcycle, if we have that motorcycle and we give it away, if we lose our job and we have to sell that motorcycle, how much suffering does that bring? Relationships, are you in relation to something? And in the present moment you can enjoy it. But it brings us joy, and immediately what do? You attach to it. You want more of it. And when it's gone, we suffer.